It's the Eagle Community Television Forum with your host, Gary Shorman.
Hi everyone, I'm Gary Shorman and this is the Forum on Eagle Television. Great to have you watching along. Our forum's brought to you by all the fine folks out at Hayes Med. Our guest is Eber Phelps, and Eber serves us as a representative for the 111th District.
That's correct.
And you've been in the off-season. Legislature ended. Courts have been in work, but legislature ended. What have you been doing in the meantime to get us up here to December?
Well, after the session, I immediately went back to work with my job here in Hayes. But I've noticed this particular off session. Seems to me that the legislature continues to be busy during the off session as well. There's probably not as many interim committees as there used to be, but as far as just constituent meetings, I've been on about 2 or 3 what we call road tours, if you will, put on by the Kansas Contractors Association, or they're under the umbrella of it covers all the highway construction projects and everything. And so we've gone out and looked at different projects, seen how bad some roads are getting, and then look at some of the enhancement projects that have been taking place. But nonetheless, there's still a lot of other meetings to go to, and I've been to a number of presentations on the Medicaid expansion as well.
Are those productive meetings, or are they informational kinds of meetings?
I think they're very productive in that as we were looking at some of the highway construction projects that need to be done, have been put off and so forth, you realize the importance of staying on that schedule. And I know in city government, Hayes has done a really good job about prioritizing which streets to do, and you kind of stay on that schedule because to me, with your infrastructure improvements or preservation projects, it's kind of a pay me now, pay me later scenario. And so if you get behind on those, it's going to increase the cost. In addition to that, when our economy is kind of struggling a little bit, that's a great way to put people to work, infuse money into the local economies, and kind of keep things rolling in that regard, instead of what we've been doing here as a state, and that's sweeping money out of that fund.
Well, I know we're heading into the new session, and this program will actually just run right before that new session starts.
Okay.
As you head into that, a couple of just questions. One is, who's our governor? Because Governor Brownback is still there, but Vice Lieutenant Governor Collier has not been actually named as governor. Will that be part of the process?
Well, you must be listening to the people on the street, because I've been asked that pretty much daily. In fact, the joke in the legislature is they're having trouble printing up the programs for the State of the State address. We don't know who's going to deliver the State of the State. Of course, once the announcement was made that the Governor Brownback was going to have an appointment, to an ambassadorship, I think a lot of people thought that was going to be pretty immediate and so forth. I forget how many months ago that's been. And so in the meantime, he's kind of turned over a number of duties to the Lieutenant Governor, Lieutenant Governor Collier, and now this is drug on, and so it's kind of like you're still the governor, so it's not like you can say, well, I'm planning on leaving anyway, so I'll have him do it. So kind of an interesting situation. I suspect if the appointment isn't announced in the next week or so, or the confirmation, that Governor Brownback will probably deliver the State of the State and kind of make that almost like a farewell address as well.
Well, you're right, an interesting time from the standpoint, because there are several issues that kind of go along with that. One, last year there was a tax increase to help, in one thing, cover some school expenses and some others as well. As we go into this next year, some of those same issues are now maybe even amplified because of some court decisions. So this is going to be an important legislative session.
Oh, absolutely, yeah. I think years ago, when I go to a legislative session, I'd kind of almost tongue-in-cheek say, our 3 top issues are going to be the budget, the budget, the budget. Well, I think this year it's safe to say it's going to be education, education, education. In fact, I was on the phone today with the Dale Dennis, the deputy, the second guy in command, I guess you could say, of the Department of Education. And he was going back and forth to the Capitol because that Education Budget Committee, or finance formula committee's been meeting and trying to hammer something out, I think, prior to the session. My speculation is that they are probably going to make, I don't even know if they're going to make any recommendations, probably present us with a bunch of facts and figures, but what they're struggling with right now is, I think, trying to really respond to the court instead of attacking the court. So the Supreme Court, ruled several things in our formula as unconstitutional. They also question the amount of money that's going in for base state aid, or the overall budget for education. And so I think rather than trying to work to a solution of that, this committee that's been meeting has kind of been spending a lot of time hammering the court, and I don't know if that's going to be productive. I don't think it is, but I don't know if that's going to result in us getting any kind of a really good recommendation out of that committee.
So what are you looking at different-wise? I saw a number around $300 million that the state is off and has to go find that money somewhere. Is that fair, or do you see it higher or lower than that?
Well, I think that that figure, at least for the 2019, might be a little high, or 2018 might be a little high. Here's, you're always trying to speculate, what's going to be the big issue and so forth. And in regard to this, the Supreme Court decision, my hope is that they will maybe allow the legislature to look at like a 3-year plan, and subsequently they would also retain their jurisdiction. Now, when we look at the funding, I've been saying this all along, that due to our action last session, we've seen the revenues increase in each reporting period for the last 4 or 5 months. And so we still have December reporting period as far as tax revenue, especially income tax. We have December, January, February, and March. Of course, we've got to come up with something to present to the court by April 30th. So as we've seen these increased revenues, they are above the estimates even. So we had budgeted $94 million. And the fact of the matter is, we now, I think since July, have an additional $108 million, or the estimate was $108 million. We're now at $117. So we're going to be pretty close to $200 million, I think, that we can infuse into education. And it may be more than that, because as they've tried to, guess how much revenue we're going to have, I think they're going to be surprised. So if we can do like $200 million each year, that'd be $600 million over a 3-year period.
How much, how much feedback did you have? I could call it, how much heat did you get? How many people said, hey, Eber, that tax increase, we didn't like it? Because whenever you talk about more money coming in, that means some taxpayers are paying a little more somewhere.
I said this prior to the session, that I think people were really aware and had educated themselves that there was something awry in Topeka with our budget situation and everything, especially as we looked at the states around us not doing too well. So, it was no secret that after the 2012 governor's tax plan had passed, we saw revenue decline exponentially over time. And so we went into the last session, to the 2017 session. We had a $900 million deficit. And when you looked at the previous years, it was just increasing deficits, and we came up with unbalanced budgets and just repeated deficits. And so most legislators went down there saying, we got to fix this some way. And I felt that when I got to Topeka, that I could sense that there was really a kind of a sense of collaboration, and people really wanted to figure out some way to do this. Cuts, some people say, you need to get rid of, unnecessary spending or wasteful spending or whatever. Governor did that. And I think there was even a press conference that I remember seeing, or reading about, I should say, where he was asked if there was any additional cuts. He said, we've done everything. And so when you look at $900 million shortfall, all the cuts that have been made to mental health, K-12 education, higher ed, home and community-based services for the disability community, nobody was willing to see any more cuts, because, many of those would not even be able to deliver their services. So what we did was not necessarily say, here's a tax increase. We just rolled things back to 2012. And if you look back at the 2012 tax schedule, most people are paying less than what we did in 2012.
So are you finding that constituents that you talk to, they're wanting to have, they don't mind that as long as it goes to the right causes?
Absolutely.
Or are you finding some that just say, no more tax increases?
I haven't met up with too much negativity about that or too much pushback because I think, as I mentioned, people had educated and they read, followed what was going on. And I think they realized that we had a situation that the only thing we could do is kind of go back. The original plan probably should have been implemented incrementally instead of all at one big time, one time. And just the state just wasn't ready for that. So, the idea was to roll back. Now, mind you, there was 88 legislators voted to override the governor on that. So, as I mentioned, there was a spirit of collaboration. The Speaker of the House actually was one of those 88 votes. So 88 out of 125, I think, sent a pretty clear message that what we did was A, necessary, and B, probably our only choice.
Okay. Eber, we're going to take a break here, but coming back, I want to find out why you're one of the few people not running for governor. Because it seems like there's a long list. I mean, we may not have a governor now. It's either Brownback or Collier, but the election is coming up. And we'll talk about that when we come back. That all right?
Okay.
You won't change your mind between now and then?
No.
Okay, our guest is our representative from the 111th District. That's Eber Phelps. Back with more after this.
Hayes Med is your first and best choice for healthcare. They're the only facility providing tertiary level services in this region. With more than 70 physicians and 26 specialties ranging from heart, orthopedic, spine care, cancer, obstetrics and gynecology, wound care, rehabilitation and surgery, including the Da Vinci robotic surgery, Hayes Med is your comprehensive health provider for people throughout Western Kansas. Hayes Med, helping people be healthy.
Are you frustrated with Wi-Fi dead zones in your home? It happens when you don't have Boost, the cutting-edge Wi-Fi solution from Eagle Communications. A Boost-certified Eagle technician maps your home, then installs a dual-band modem and router, plus discrete access points to deliver wall-to-wall Wi-Fi with no dead zones. Boost powers all your family's devices in all the places you love to live. Get Boost. Wi-Fi made simple. Only from Eagle Communications. Call today.
Welcome back to the second half of our forum program. We're honored to have our representative from the 111th District, Eber Phelps, joining us as the new legislative session gets underway here shortly. If you have any ideas, questions, some things we want to follow up on from this program, let me know. You can send me an email at gary.shorman@eaglecom.net. You can also chase me down on Facebook under ECTV Forum, ECTV Forum. Again, our guest is Eber Phelps, and we went into the break kind of half-heartedly talking about the governor's race for this next election coming up. I don't know how many candidates are out there. I know it's a long list. You start looking at the list. You're not on that list.
I am not on that list.
But everybody else seems to be.
You're taking my line that I use whenever I speak to a group. I say, well, let's get a little housekeeping done first, and I am not running for governor. So there are, I don't know if anybody filed today, but I was asked the other day how many people are running for governor, and I've lost track. A lot of remarks have been made about the age span. We have some high school students that have decided they wanted to run for governor, and
so there's no lower limit.
Apparently not. In fact, I'd mentioned just today that I think there's already been legislation introduced about putting an age limit, I guess you could say, on when you can file for governor, and I think it has something to do with being able to vote.
What's causing the sheer numbers? Is it because of lack of somebody that's a real candidate for this, or to have that many candidates out there?
I don't know. You could probably look at it from that standpoint because you have a broad spectrum, I think, of ideology running for governor, and a lot of different focuses out there. But it's kind of one of those things. Everybody has the right to vote, and of course, as each candidate gets in there, people start talking about how people are going to raise money with that many, and so forth, and what that's going to do, and really and truly, everybody's got an opinion on it, and once we have our primary that clears up the field, and then you know what's going on. So, as I mentioned, I wouldn't be surprised if there's some additional filings. And there just was one either yesterday or the day before on the Democrat side. Senator Laura Kelly from Topeka threw her name in the hat. That might have a lot to do with the importance of the women's vote, or she might not. I don't know what her reasons were, but she comes very qualified, I'll say that.
How does the national theater of politics play in Kansas? Does it kind of trickle down into Kansas, some of the national political, I guess, narrative that goes on there?
We try to avoid, getting into, like I said, the Beltway politics. And unfortunately, I think when our governor came back to Kansas, I think he brought some of that. And, I like to always think of, the Kansas legislature as having a great process and, a great system to work through some problems and get things done. And it's just been kind of in disarray here the last few years. And I felt that this last session kind of got us back on track. In the meantime, I don't see anything really coming out of Washington, D.C. Where it looks like, both parties trying to work on things together. And that's unfortunate, but it's something that I think there's a lot of people would like to see it fixed. I don't think anybody knows how to get it, back on track.
Let's talk a little bit as we end the program here today. You're starting the new legislative session here shortly. You head into that. Do you have some goals, things you would like to see happen that would affect our area, the 111th district?
Well, obviously we saw, when I mentioned all the cuts before, we saw cuts to not only K-12 education, but to higher education. Fort Hays' budget going into 2016 was about $155 million. They're operating now on about a $135 million budget. So, all our regions and institutions have seen cuts. And, we know the importance of Fort Hays State University. So I'd love to see that, especially with our university being so successful in growing. And also, the mission that they're on as far as, the distance learning programs and, agriculture, nursing, developing good teachers or training good teachers and so forth. And I'd like to see, restore our funding. I'm on the Ellis County Extension Board. We're affected by higher education cuts, especially as they pertain to Kansas State University. And so that's on the local level, delivering services, whether it be for horticulture or the agriculture community. And, we put our budget together, and then after Kansas State University gets their budget, they pull money out. It's a kind of a return thing, but that kind of, then kind of disrupts what you're doing here. So, higher education is very important. A goal that I can't, overlook, of course, is the Medicaid expansion, which we came close. Well, we passed it, but the governor vetoed it, and we didn't have enough votes for, overriding the governor on that. I looked at the Kansas Hospital Association website today. They have a constant ticker on there showing how much money that we have passed up on that would have drawn down from the federal government. It's now at $2.294 billion. Now that could have really stabilized things with our budget, and also provided health care coverage as well. So we are a state that just our governor's adamant about seeing that passed. I think right now, as legislators have gone out in the off-session era, I think there might be a little bit of desire to readdress that. So I would like to see that passed.
Very good. And roads? Can we get some money back for our roads?
Well, they're already kind of embarking on a new comprehensive transportation plan. And hopefully when that gets funded, instead of sweeping money out, we'll be more stabilized, with our budget, and we can actually go out and do those projects.
I understand it, right? Some money's been swept out to pay for education and other things.
Absolutely.
And it's caused
general operation, general operation of government. And I always said this: if you don't think roads are important, serve in city or county government. And I mean, that is one of your major things to address. And so as we see, bridges fall into further disrepair and roads, it's just going to be more expensive to come back and repair those.
Well, I know it's a busy time as you get heading back and forth to Topeka and doing that. appreciate the work you do going out and visiting with groups, because you're always, I know, available to go out and visit with groups, talk to them about what's going on. You show up for those different things, and it's no, they call it a volunteer effort, but it's no volunteer effort. The time it takes to go back and forth to Topeka and do what you do.
Well, let me just put something on top of that. One thing that I just admire about this community, though, is the volunteerism that we have in our community. You saw it for all your years working on the telethon for Big Brothers Big Sisters, and the outpouring of people participating, and whether it's any program downtown or anything with in all our committees that are available to serve on, and then just our service organizations. People just step up and do a great job. So I know there's some people that have just been doing this for years and years, and I have total admiration for them and for the community that they represent.
Good luck in the legislature. We'll be touching base with you somewhere during the session to see if you're getting the job done, and the group in Kansas getting the job done as well. But thanks for all you do.
Okay. Hopefully then I'll have some better information on who's the governor.
Yeah, we'll find out.
Or who's running.
Who's running. Well, it's great to have you watching along our program. Our guest has been Eber Phelps, who represents us, all of us, in the 111th District. Thanks for watching the Forum. It's brought to you by Hayes Med and by Eagle Communications, our community connected.
It's a beautiful day in our super high-speed internet great customer service neighborhood. Like you, this is where we live. In fact, our company is employee-owned, so it's our goal to improve the quality of life for everyone in our community by delivering faster, more reliable internet, clearer, more feature-laden phone service, quality TV channels, all with the level of customer service you'd expect from people who are your neighbors. Eagle Communications, our community connected.